Hello friends. Now we see the constructor. Constructor is a member function of a class, but it is used to initialize the object. Constructor. Constructor is used to define or initialize the object of a class. Now when you see the name as a constructor, what is the use of it? Constructor is used to construct the object. When you say construct, that means what? That means you are specifying or you are initializing the value for that object. Yes, constructor is nothing but a member function of a class. Then what is special in that? Yes, there is, because whenever you are writing any member function, by default you have to specify the return type and that function name. But while declaring the constructor as a member function, you don't need to specify the return type, and the function name will be same as a class name. Now we'll see in detail. A constructor is a special member function whose task is to initialize the object of its class. It is a special because its name is same as the class name. The constructor is invoked whenever the object of its associated class is created. It is called a constructor because it constructs the value of a data members of the class. The constructor functions have some special characteristics. But whenever you are specifying any constructor, you don't need to call it inside the main function. Then how it will get called? It will get invoked or instantiated whenever the object will get created. At the time of object creation, by default, compiler will call the constructor. But for that, you have to follow some characteristics or the rules. They should be declared inside the public section, because the public means you can access that data anywhere outside the class. So if you want to create the object inside the main block, you have to create that constructor as a public. Fine. Second, they are invoked automatically when the objects get created. Yes, you don't need to call them anywhere inside the main function. Whenever the object will get created inside the main function, by default it will get called or invoked. Next, they do not have return types, not even void, and therefore they cannot return the values. Yes, constructor does not return value. It is used to create the object or instantiate the object. With the help of constructor, you are not returning any value to the main function. Then, they cannot be inherited, though a derived class can call the base class constructor. Yes, if you want to perform the inheritance for the base class, you cannot derive the feature that is constructor. It is not possible to directly inherit the class constructor to the another subclass constructor. Next, we'll see the example for the constructor. Class as a my class. Inside the my class, I am creating one data member as int a. In the public, I am creating my first constructor, that is default constructor. There are basically three types of constructor. The first is default. The second is parameterized. And the third is copy constructor. In that, the first I am specifying as a default constructor. The second I am saying as void show. So I am creating one normal data member function as a void show. Then outside the class, I am declaring my class constructor definition as my class, scope resolution operator, my class inside the bracket, cout in constructor a is equal to 10. So outside the class I am given the constructor definition as my class. Then after done with the definition of a constructor, I am defining the method, that is show. How? My class scope resolution show inside the bracket C out of A. Now you will question me that why there is no return type, because the show method having the return type, that is word, which is by default that is not returning any value to the main function, so we can omit them. Next, inside the int main I am creating the object as int ob. So by default your default constructor will get called, that means this function. Whenever ob will get created, at that time this function will get called. So you will get first thing as in constructor as a output, and ob show will display you the value as a 10. In this example, the constructor is called when the object is created, and the constructor initializes the private variable a as 10. The output you will get it as in constructor with a space as 10. Next we'll see the types of constructor. In that the first type is default constructor. Default means whenever you are not creating any constructor for the particular class, that time the default constructor will get created by the compiler inside the structure. But if you want to specify any extra features for the default constructor, you can call that default constructor inside your class. Now we'll see in details. A default constructor for any class is the constructor with a no arguments. When no arguments are passed, the constructor will assign the value specifically assigned in the body of the constructor. It can be 0 or any other value. The default constructor can be identified by the name of a class followed by empty parenthesis. As we have seen in the above program, the default constructor is declared as my class without the parameter. If it is not defined explicitly, then it is automatically defined implicitly by the system or the compiler. Likewise, before when we are using a my class, that time also we created the object as ob1, ob2, but that time we have not declared any constructor. Then how that object get created? That object get created with the help of default constructor. Next we'll see the second constructor type, that is parameterized. When you say parameterized, the name specifies that there are the arguments present for that constructor. Now we'll see. It is possible to pass the arguments to the constructor. Typically, this arguments helps to initialize an object when it is get created. So, whenever you are creating the object with the help of parameterized constructor, by default you can specify some values to that object variables. Next, to create a parameterized constructor, simply add parameters to the way you would to any other function. When you define the constructor body, use the parameterized to initialize the object. For example, my class, I am creating two data member as A and B. Then we are declaring one parameterized constructor as a my class int I int j. At the time of this, I am creating two parameters with the help of parameterized constructor. Then I am specifying the value of I to A and value of j to B. Then I am creating one member function as a void show. With the help of show member function, I am just displaying the value as cout A with a space B and closing your class. Inside the int main, my class OB3, 5. So whenever my location will save the name as OB, at the time of that, the value of A will be 3 and value of V will be 5. Then OB dot show, at the time of this you will get output as 3 with a space 5. Fine. So with the help of parameterized constructor, you can assign the default values to the particular object data members. Next, C++ supports the constructor overloading, and a constructor is said to be overloaded when the same constructor with a different number of arguments and its types of arguments initialize an object. That means you can define multiple constructor inside the same class with one parameter, multiple parameters, or number of parameters. But default constructors will be present only once. You cannot overload default constructors. Next type is copy constructor. What is use of copy constructor? Copy constructor is used to create a temporary object. So we'll see in detail. A copy constructor is a constructor which creates an object by initializing it with an object of a same class which has been created previously. So if you want to use any of the object which is previously created, so that copy you can create with the help of copy constructor. If a class definition does not explicitly include copy constructor, then system automatically create one by one for the default. The copy constructor is used to initialize one object from another of the same type. Second, copy an object to pass it as an argument to the function. Third, copy an object to return it from a function. So first you can use it to create a copy of a same type. If you want to create a copy of a same type, you can use a copy constructor. Next, if you want to create an object copy to pass the argument to the function, then also you can use a copy constructor. Next, if you want to create a copy of an object which is returning to that function, so that time also you can use a copy constructor. So these are the usage of copy constructor. The most common form of copy constructor is class name, const, class name with the ampersand sign obj. So whatever is the object name, you have to specify with the help of sign ampersand, and you can write a body of a constructor. So here we are specifying obj is a reference to an object that is belongs to the initialization of another object. So whenever you are creating the object of this class, that class will have the reference of another object. The keyword const is used because obj should not be changed. That obj value will not get changed. That's why we are specifying the keyword that is const. Without that, the object name can be get changed. So you have to specify the const keyword. Thank you.